Rock. A very complicated genre, isn't it? The reason I say it's complicated is because throughout the decades, rock would always drastically evolve to the point a lot of them stand out on their own. Sure, there exists classical, jazz, and country music, but even throughout its decades, they more or less feel technically the same, with the only real differences being the tone or just depending on what instrument they use.
Oh, those blues in a bottle, blues in a bottle.
But when I woke, dear, I was mistaken, and I hung my head.
But with rock, it's always very diverse depending on what decade they were being made in. From its complicated beginnings to where it is now, rock throughout its course has music so radically different from one another that they more or less stand out as their own type of music. The earliest type of rock music started around the late 40s and early 50s, with the whole rock and roll genre going around. The earliest type of rock music was basically a mix of both jazz and country music, creating a style that no one has actually heard of before, and yet were invested so easily. Arguably the first being Rocket 88 by Jackie Brenston and his Delta Cats, along with Ike Turner and his Kings of Rhythm.
Yes, it's straight, just one way.
Although Brenston would later claim that the song was actually just borrowing Jimmy Ligon's Cadillac Boogie from 1947.
The woogie wouldn't wait, bought me a long black Cadillac 8. It's all reach, solid streamline.
Although, others would say the earliest one is 1946's Ain't That Just Like a Woman by Louis Jordan.
There was Adam, happy as a man could be, till Eve got him messing with that old apple tree. Ain't that just like
When they drive them all away, there are strange things happening every day.
Many new and upcoming musicians would get influenced by this type of genre and would create many classics from there on out. From Bill Haley and his comments with Rock Around the Clock,
5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock.
Lil Richard with Long Tall Sally,
ooh, baby, having me some fun tonight. Yeah, well, long time.
Elvis Presley with Jailhouse Rock,
Everybody let rock.
and Chuck Berry with Johnny B. Good.
Way back up in the woods among the evergreens, there stood a log cabin made of earth and wood.
Rock Around the Clock is definitely notable for arguably being the first rock and roll song to top Billboard magazine's Made Sales and Airplay charts, which opened the door worldwide for this new wave of popular culture. Of course, this would get many who played this genre into trouble. Elvis Presley, for example, would get in trouble with the news and TV areas mainly due to his fast and quirky dance movements, gave an exposition that it was suggestive and vulgar for female audience members. It doesn't help that since most of his popularity was around southern states at the time, it led government officials widely considering people like him in this genre of music overall as a threat to white Americans due to its more basics on black musical art. But controversy or no controversy, rock in general kept on rising into the mainstream media. Out of North America and into Britain, it went crazy. Rock continued to evolve despite the controversial moments from earlier musicians spreading it day and night. Each musician would give their own unique spin, starting with surf music from the people like Dick Dale, who added a distinctive wet reverb and rapid alternative picking through his rock, with influences from the music of Middle Eastern countries as well as Mexico. There, he produced the regional hit Let's Go Tripping in 1961. launched the surf music craze, with popular musicians like the Beach Boys coming in and spreading it out with their own surfing style, drawing on the rock alone, as well as doo-wop and the close harmonies of vocal pop acts like the Four Freshmen. Their song, Surfin', in 1962 would reach the Billboard Top 100.
On my radio, I was checking out the surfing scene to see if I would go. And when the DJ tells me that...
Of course, from the likes of musicians who were inspired by this genre and were experienced enough to start making their own type of rock. One of the most influential of this era were the Beatles, who were relatively making decent hits as early as the late 50s, but didn't get much recognition until about 1962 with their hit, Love Me Do.
I love you, I'll always be true, so please.
Which gained success not just in Britain and the US, but also Australia and New Zealand, and the Beatles quickly became international hits of the 60s. Their music pretty much explored music styles ranging from folk and Indian music to psychedelia and hard rock. Their influence was so big that they were one of the causes of what would be called the British invasion, which revitalized a new wave of rock, helping set up a template for newer rock musicians to come and go. The 1960s were also just a major rapid change for our world. Socially, the civil rights movement were being headed by figureheads like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and the Black Panthers, bringing light to the racial injustices that African Americans were facing, which also helped set the basis for several other civil rights movements such as the women's rights movement, the gay rights movement, as well as the American Indian movement and Chicano movement. Culturally also resulted in normalizing topics that were once considered illicit, which started many movements of things like the hippie movement during the heights of events such as the Vietnam War. Of course, these major changes would apply in the messages led by musicians, such as The Doors, like The Unknown Soldier, with its psychedelic rock nature. Carl Dallas of Melody Maker formulated that the song is an apocalyptic piece, which seems to sum up the Vietnam nourished at the center of American life. Lines such as,
Breakfast where the news is read, television, children fed, unborn living dead, bullet strikes the helmet's head.
is concerned the way news of the war was being presented in the living rooms of ordinary people. The track ends with sounds of crowds cheering and bells tolling, representing an ecstatic celebration of a war being over. Rock would eventually get better commercialization by the 70s into the 80s, with type of rock genres up and around the world like grime and punk. But despite their notifying influence, none of them were truly able to stick out as much with multiple rock but three primary types, those being alternative, heavy metal, and grunge. Alternative with the Flaming Lips, heavy metal with Iron Maiden, and grunge with Kiss.
I really love you, baby. I love what you've got. Let's get together, we can get hot.
But even that aside, rock would still clear up in many ways through big influences in newer, refreshing ways. Take, for example, Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, a progressive rock song notable for its lack of refrain and chorus and consisting of several sections: an intro, a ballad segment, an operatic passage, a hard rock part, and a reflective coda, all lasting up to about 6 minutes, parodying elements of opera with bombastic choruses, sarcastic recitative, and distorted Italian operatic phrases, with lyrical references include
Scaramouche, Scaramouche, will you do the fandango? Galileo, Galileo, Galileo Figaro. Magnifico! Oh, mamma mia, mamma mia. Mamma mia, let me go. Beelzebub.
with cries of Bismillah. At first given mixed reception, it would gain much better widespread acclaim, and is now considered one of the greatest songs of all time. Nowadays, most people may likely listen to rock around the 90s and 2000s, heavily influencing the guitar distortion, fuzz, and feedback, such as Nirvana's Smells Like a Teen Spirit, Third Eye Blind's Semi-Charmed Life, Linkin Park's In the End, and System of a Down's Chop Suey.
Wake up. Run, rush, and put a little makeup. I just have to fade away the shake up. Why'd you leave the keys up on the table? Here you go, create another fable. You wanted to.
There's definitely a lot more out there, and most people are likely listening to rock music that I haven't even mentioned, like a Tenacious D song, oops. Either way, it's a genre that heavily influenced our youth, and definitely isn't gonna die anytime soon. But changes will happen with the rock, I can guarantee.